The next lab that we're going to talk about is actually an example of using XXE to cause the target server to send a request. So it's XXE to SSRF, which is short for server-side request forgery. Now again, when you're doing these challenges, you have to read the content of it. And let's see what we are supposed to do in here. The lab is running a simulated EC2 metadata endpoint. So EC2 is just a type of servers that you can get from Amazon. It's giving us the IP, so we're assuming that we already know that there is a server that is running on this specific IP. And this endpoint can be used to retrieve data about the instance, some of which might be sensitive. To solve this, we're supposed to perform a server-side request forgery that obtains the server's IAM secret key. So like I said, these vulnerabilities can be used to get useful data. And what we're going to try to do is communicate with this particular server through an XXE vulnerability. So if you simply copy this IP or copy this location and load it in your browser, you'll see that this will not work because the server that is running on this IP is configured to only work if a specific server communicates with it. So it refuses connections that it gets from all of the servers around the world, and it only accepts connections from the web application that is designed to use it. That's why we need to use an XXE to cause the target server that we are manipulating to communicate with it. And perfect, we have the lab here. Again, it's a website that is very similar to the previous one. So we're just going to click on any product. We're going to turn on our interceptor. We're going to click on check stock, and perfect. As you can see, again, we have the content type XML. We can see the XML in here. So we're going to test for XXE vulnerabilities. We're going to right click and send it to the repeater, and we're going to manipulate it in the repeater. Let's send a normal request at the start without any manipulation. Again, we can see the result here. Perfect, no issues at all. And we're actually going to use the exact same exploit or the exact same payload. The only difference is, instead of giving it a local file in here, we're actually going to give it an IP, which is the IP of the server that we want to communicate with, which is this server. And obviously we're going to remove the file directive in here. So right now we're basically just seeing another use of this specific payload in XXE vulnerabilities, and instead of reading a file on the local server, we're actually going to use the local server that is running the web application to communicate with another server that is at this location. So simply, instead of putting a file path in here, we're putting a location for another server. Now we're assuming through the information gathering stage, or maybe through other exploitation, we managed to discover this server, and we know that this server can lead to sensitive information. So we're given this in this scenario. That's why we're doing it this way. So we're going to do that the same way that we done it before. We're just going to inject that in here, and in the product ID, we're going to refer to the variable, and we're going to send it. And as you can see now, it's saying that there is an invalid product ID latest. So it's actually directing us to another path on the target server. And the other path is /latest. So we're simply going to type latest in here and send it again. Now it's giving us another path, metadata. So we're going to put that. Send it again. Next one is IAM. Send it. Next one is security credentials. Paste it here. Send it. Next one is admin. Send it. And perfect. Finally, as you can see, we managed to get the security credentials, the access key ID, the secret access key, the token, and the expiry. So In this example, we're basically using the exact same exploit in here, the same payload. The only difference is instead of specifying a file path, a local file path, we actually specified a remote server to communicate with, and we used that to actually gather or extract information from that server. Now, this is useful in two ways. The first is the scenario that we just seen, to retrieve data from an internal resource that we cannot access and only the target web server can access. The second scenario that it can be very useful in is if we have an out-of-bound XXE. What we mean by out-of-bound XXEs is previously, in the first example, when we were exploiting the server and playing with it, we were actually getting useful error messages. Sometimes, in some scenarios, you might not get useful error messages, so you could execute something like this and you won't see the result back. You have no way of displaying the result back, or you have no error messages. Therefore, you don't know if your exploit is working or not. In that case, you can actually send this request to a server that you own. So you can simply run your own server and put the IP of your own server in here. And when you send this request, the target web server will send this request to your own server, and therefore you'll be able to see in the logs of your server that you got a request from the target web server, and therefore you will know that the target web server has an XXE vulnerability.